I have the pleasure of welcoming Subodh Bhargava. He is the chairman of Tata Communications and an IIT Roorkee alumni. Mr. Bhargava, welcome.
Thank you.
I want to start with the overall Indian economic scenario in today's global downturn when great economies of the world are struggling. We have done fairly well. I want your perspective on that.
Well, certainly Indian economy has not been hurt as badly as the rest of the world, especially North America and Europe. It is basically a developing economy, and therefore the consumption is more essential than optional, which has kept the economy going. To the extent that Indian economy was export linked to North America and Europe or Japan, there has been a significant erosion of the opportunity there, but that's been adequately compensated by the growth from rural India. The crops and the overall growth of last few years at 8 to 9% has enabled the momentum to be sustained, and this year we expect the growth to be around 6.5%, which is, to my mind, perhaps the second best in the world after China and very close to China. And this is seen as a sustainable growth because the demand on a consumer-led demand has been sustained, and now there is a stretch on the capacity, and we are just waiting for that capacity expansion to come in. And finally, I think the most important thing to sustain the demand has been infrastructure investments. The government and also the new PPP model, the government and private sector partnership model, has unleashed many projects, whether it's in the road sector, airports, seaports, or power sector, should continue to lead the growth in the economy.
My next question is two-pronged, so I'll take the first one. Is your vertical, the segment that your company represents, which is communications. Wanted your take on the current scenario of the communications status in India, and how what the immediate challenges are, if you can name one or two, and in the next 5 years, where do you foresee it emerging?
Well, you see, the market for telecommunication in India has still a huge potential. The tele-density in the urban India may be something like 60 to 70%, but in rural India it's less than 10%. And mind you, 2/3 of India lives in rural sector, and therefore the growth opportunity there is huge. The constraints are really the spread of the network, the fiber. India is a huge country, and therefore to get into the interiors where India lives in villages, the access for the broadband or for the telecom services is limited and slow in sort of growing. But it is inevitable, and now today we are looking at internet reaching out to every corner of India, which will also give simultaneously the telecom sector, the mobile phone especially, huge opportunity to grow. The constraints, as I said, is number one is the question of the backbone fiber network across the country, on the land, under the land, where there are several initiatives, but I would say it will take time to realize and deliver. And second is this whole question of spectrum. India has got a problem with the last mile access, and with the last mile problems, the investments and reaching out to the retail user is becoming more and more difficult, and therefore it has to be on the wireless, and that wireless services cannot expand unless the long awaited spectrum allocation or auction doesn't take place. We are all looking forward to that, and which will then lead to expanding both mobile services or internet services, or anything related with telecom really. There are no other major constraints to my mind. Of course, you can always talk about some policy initiatives, but overall, I think it continues to be a growth environment.
So the second part, I want to come back to Tata Communications. As a company, you said you have the largest undersea cable, the carriers of the carriers. Wanted to understand, what you as a company or how you as a company are addressing some of the challenges of Indians?
You see, the greatest challenge for us today is whereas the volumes are growing, the tariffs are coming down hugely because of either fierce competition or just the affordability of the cost structure. And this has to be overcome by us or companies like ours through volume generation only. For volume generation, we need more and more capital expenditure. We being the carrier of carriers and also for enterprises, both in data and voice, we have to keep on expanding our network wherever our clients go, wherever our customers go. And today we have a 200,000 kilometer of fiber, and maybe we are present with our POPs in more than 40 countries. But this just keeps on growing because yesterday it was Southeast Asia, tomorrow it will be Africa, and unless I get my cable around Africa and POPs within Africa, I'll lose out my client because he's want to be operating there. And we are on that process. It's a high capital expenditure sort of a necessity, but then we will have to see through. And more important thing perhaps happening all over is the new value-added services, whether it is roaming or storage and etc., where even the mobile growth globally has been opportunity for us to enable the mobile services to become user-friendly by our value-adding propositions in the value chain.
Finally, asking a question where you'll be very happy to answer, I'm supposing, is the role and the prestige associated with IIT and IITians. They have done a great job here in this country, and Pan IIT is a great example. And you being an alumni of IIT Roorkee, I'm sure you'll have a few good things to share with us.
Well, I can only say that the misconception that IITians have delivered only to the US economy or the European economy and have neglected Indian economy to somehow doesn't gel. There are 175,000 IITians today, and US has had a few very high-profile achievers, whether it is Arjun Malhotra, Vinod Khosla, Kamal Rekhi, Rajat Gupta, and so on and so forth. But if I look at and of course there are hundreds of CEOs and innovators, and of course occupying information technology space very proudly in that. But I'm sure in India also, if there was a census taken, there are IITians everywhere, whether they are CEOs or CTOs or whatever else. And they are adding value, they are delivering. And I think not only at individual or institutional level, this Pan IIT itself as a movement has, over the last 6-7 years, been very focused on contributing to nation building. And the number of missions which have been taken, either in respect of education, innovation, have made recommendations which Government of India has found useful and are implementing. And therefore, I believe Pan IIT movement has got a great contribution already made and should continue to be so in the future also.
Mr. Bhargava, thank you again for the opportunity.
My pleasure. Thank you.